Greetings again to everyone and welcome to the presentation on COVID-19 and the training environment. The training landscape has changed. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the way in which we learn in a very significant way. While many of us were gradually moving towards a more digitalized form of instruction and facilitation, this was being done at our leisure and convenience. Then a world event that changed everything happened. And that has forced us to rethink how we do business. Very quickly, too. The aviation industry is generally reactive and usually takes a very long time to make decisions, relying on endless research and expert opinion. This time round, we realized that we did not have the luxury of time, research, and experimentation before implementing procedures. And fortunately, we have responded definitively. In South Africa and most other countries, procedures and measures have been required by the Department of Health as part of occupational health and safety practices. This includes recording details of all visitors to a building, the wearing of masks in classes, regular sanitization, and physical distancing of desks and learners. I won't go into much detail on that other than to say that Danette and I have been to a few ATOs during this time and have been very impressed by the observation of COVID-19 protocols that we have witnessed. The business of aviation is such that we are able to utilize digital learning platforms that still meet with the regulatory outcomes for a large portion of the required curriculum. However, the nature of our work as cabin crew and the testing required to demonstrate certain competencies does not allow us to fully immerse ourselves in the digital world. I will not go into detail on the requirements for ATO approval to conduct e-learning, as this will be covered in the ATO presentation. In response to the request for guidance and direction in completing the recurrent training programs for cabin crew, the ICAO Cabin Safety Group developed the Handbook for Cabin Crew Recurrent Training during COVID-19 in May of 2020. This document provides guidelines for alleviation of certain required outcomes, such as the donning of emergency equipment and participating in group drills. In South Africa, operators still have to request alleviation from the drills from their POI in flight operations. In doing this, a risk assessment must be performed, demonstrating how the drill outcomes will be met. You will note that this document only applies to recurrent training. This is because it was developed to enable existing cabin crew members to revalidate their competencies before commencing with flying duties. Consideration was given to various acceptable means of achieving the outcomes, including verbal descriptions of certain procedures, watching videos on operations, and/or altering the means of delivery. Also, the target market is cabin crew that have a minimum of 6 months of experience, so it was agreed that certain drills could be deferred to the next training cycle without any risk to or impact on safety. A copy of Doc 10148 will be posted under Files in this webinar. This document is also currently being reviewed to ensure that the information contained therein is up to date and still relevant. ICAO has prepared for the COVID-19 measures and protocols to be in place till the 31st of March 2021. For this reason, all COVID-19 information on their website will remain available to the public till the 31st of March 2021 unless circumstances change. It was decided that initial training is not currently a priority in this regard, and therefore any initial cabin crew learners would still be required to meet with all outcomes. We have to commend the ATOs that we have visited, as the health and safety measures in place have been effective and innovative, ensuring that all initial outcomes are met. Another publication which is useful for the development of digital learning programs is Circular 356, the Guidelines on Digital Learning for Cabin Crew Training. This circular was developed by the ICAO Cabin Safety Group and offers detailed guidance on designing, developing, and using digital learning for cabin crew safety training. The circular may only be used in conjunction with the regulatory requirements of Part 141 for an e-learning program. A copy of the circular will be posted under the Files tab. All of that being said, what about the instructor and the examiner? How were they affected by this new way of doing things? This new training environment has forced a change in approach by cabin crew instructors and cabin designated examiners. Instructors and DEs very often take for granted the ability to show expression and emphasize points through their faces. Masks alter the ability to project and to emphasize certain points, making the use of clear, concise instructions more important than ever. Now they are in a position where protection of self and the learner is critical, while still encouraging an enabling environment that is conducive to learning and to achieving competency. They would normally read their learners by studying facial expression. They read their confusion, their understanding, their fatigue, and their interest by gauging the entire face. Now that very useful tool has been removed, and the student has been forced to become more self-directed and self-motivated. In some cases, this may be particularly challenging for the instructor or examiner. In fact, calling it what it is, it's exhausting. Danette and I are seeing that instructors and DEs are taking much more strain and becoming more easily fatigued. The mask creates the impression that one is not projecting well enough, and so instructors and DEs are raising their voices to the point that they are hoarse by the end of the day. They're also becoming more animated in the conveying of their message, which is highly entertaining for us, but the performance is draining on them. Human factors are also more critical now. By this, we mean the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic and associated protocols is having on people. The same anxiety levels that may be experienced by passengers on board an aircraft may well be present in cabin crew members, instructors, and designated examiners. Danette and I are very privileged to be able to interact with people on a one-on-one basis, and this privilege has often afforded us very intimate views of the lives of our instructors and designated examiners. We are so humbled by the resilience being shown in the face of some very serious adversities. Your professionalism is truly admirable. It is important to bear these factors in mind when developing training programs. Inasmuch as operators and ATOs may want to maximize the time available on a training day, the human factor must also be considered when doing this. Instructors and examiners are critical in the cycle of developing a culture of maintaining safety on board an aircraft and conveying of information to cabin crew members. At the end of the day, we still want competent, safety-conscious cabin crew members on board our aircraft. And so, we encourage instructors and examiners to give regular documented feedback to their ATOs so that the product being delivered to cabin crew, whether initial or recurrent, remains of a high quality and standard, even at this unprecedented time. Thank you very much.